Hello guys, welcome to another True Horror Stories video. Today you will hear 3 scary stories that will make you think about the reality of this world. Don't forget to subscribe, and here we go. Once, my friends and I accidentally ended up in a small village deep in the woods. We had no idea that such a remote and God-forsaken place existed. Almost all the houses were crooked, with roofs slanted by time. It was obvious that they were at least half a century old. The wood was so rotten. And here's what happened. On the way to the city, our car broke down. The city was still far away. We stood on the side of the road for about 3 hours, and not a single car passing by stopped to help us. Tyler remembered an abandoned village nearby. I don't know. They say that no one lives there, but you never know. Maybe the old people stayed? Because we were really thirsty and hungry, he said. We all agreed, although the prospect of walking into the forest did not particularly please us. But we were very hungry and wanted water, since we had stupidly not taken anything with us. In general, half an hour of walking along an abandoned forest path through the thicket, and we came to the village. As I already said, I have never seen a more wretched place. I doubted that anyone lived in this hole at all. On both sides of the road we were walking along, there were black houses, like stone sculptures. There's no one here, I said, looking around. Yes, definitely no one. The others nodded. We had to go back to the car, since we had no other choice. When we came to the place where we left the car, no miracle happened, and it did not move. Evening was already approaching, and leaving the car on the road was not an option. It was decided that we would spend the night in the car, since the walk back was far. Night fell. We sat quietly in the car. Suddenly we heard some sound coming from the forest. There was noise coming from the direction of the abandoned village. We heard shouts, laughter, and someone talking. These were people. Judging by their voices, there were many of them. It seemed like some kind of celebration. We were happy at the thought that we could finally ask for water and food, and maybe even stop for the night. It was getting very cold, and the night promised to be icy. We again got ready to go through the forest to the houses. This time, inspired by the dream of food and water, we did not even notice how long and difficult the path was. In the end, we ran headlong onto the road, around which stood wooden, rotten houses. In the center of the road, people were arranged in a semicircle. A fire was burning. Children were running around it and playing some game that was incomprehensible to us. The adults, and there were about 20 of them, were singing songs. A man in a gray suit was playing the accordion. They didn't notice us coming, and we had to come closer to get their attention. Finally, one of the men turned around and stared at us. For a moment, I thought he was scared when he saw us. His expression changed from joyful to almost despair. He was the only one who had noticed us so far, as the others were busy singing. The man made a clear gesture with his hand, unnoticed by the others. "Get out of here." His face was stern as he waved us away. Oh no, I thought. To hell with their whole party. I'm thirsty and hungry. I'm so sorry to ruin the party. And not expecting such impudence from myself, I walked straight up to them and said loudly, "Hello, my name is Chris, and these are my friends. Our car broke down during the day, and no one stopped to help us. Here's the thing, maybe you could give us something to drink and eat a little, because we didn't bring anything with us." I fell silent and waited for an answer. Everyone looked at me with surprise and curiosity, as if they had seen an unknown animal. No one said a word. Everyone just continued to look. I felt somehow embarrassed by my behavior, but I had no choice. I was afraid that I would not survive the night if I did not drink water. My thirst was so strong. Finally, the old man in the gray suit playing the accordion turned around and said, "Well, sit down by the fire, guys. Warm up for a start." "Yes, that would be nice," I said. We all sat down by the fire under the watchful gaze of many eyes. The man who had waved to us now became emphatically calm and simply looked at us among the others. The children also looked at the guests with curiosity. The old man in the gray suit again began to play some songs unfamiliar to us. The people around continued to have fun and sing, but we felt that our presence changed the atmosphere among them. Many of them looked at us with malice and constantly exchanged glances with each other, conveying incomprehensible hints with their glances. After sitting by the fire and noticeably becoming more animated, he began to do what he loved most of all: chat. And personally, I heard that no one lives in this village. We came here during the day and didn't see anyone, he said, addressing the old man in the gray suit. It's all because we were hunting. You understand, we live far from the city, there are no stores. We need to eat something. By the way, about food and water. Why do you need to spend the night in a cold car? Come on, spend the night at my place. There's plenty of room, he answered. It's kind of awkward. Tyler hesitated and looked at me. I thought about it and decided that it wasn't a bad idea. Why freeze in the cold when you're offered free shelter? In the end, we agreed, although of course at first we pretended to be polite. But the old man was so stubborn in persuading us and describing spacious, warm rooms that we couldn't resist the temptation for long. An hour later, accompanied by the same old man and apparently his wife, we approached a house on the outskirts of the village. It was cold, and we couldn't wait to go inside. Once inside, we were very surprised. The house was very dirty, dusty, and in general the place looked as if no one had ever lived in it. It's just renovation. Don't worry, the beds are warm. You'll sleep soundly, the old man said apologetically and quickly exchanged glances with his wife. I caught something suspicious in that look. I didn't like the idea of spending the night with strangers. The old man went into the next room. There were 3 of them in total, showing us a sign to follow him. We all followed him and found ourselves in an almost empty room. Apart from a large bed and a chair, there was nothing there. I looked back at my friends, and from their faces I realized that they didn't like all this either. Well, make yourselves comfortable, the old man said, and in the meantime, I'll go get some water and some rabbit meat. He and his wife went outside. My friends began to settle in, look around the house, and I needed to go to the toilet. I went outside to look for a restroom, and suddenly I heard a conversation from the darkness. Let's kill them now, a female voice was heard. Why wait? No, let's wait for the others, kill them in their sleep, the male voice answered. Oh, how we missed newcomers, especially young ones. My head was spinning. I decided to find out what was going on. They were talking around the corner, and I looked in. The old man and his woman who had brought us here were talking. I couldn't believe what I saw. The old man was standing with his back to me, and I clearly saw the axe sticking out of his back and the bloody gray shirt he had been playing the accordion in a few hours earlier. He stood and talked as if nothing was bothering him. For a moment he stood like that, and I couldn't see the woman, but when he turned slightly, I saw her too. I went cold with horror. Where the face should have been, there was a bloody mess. The eye sockets were empty and the eyeballs were hanging near the mouth. I stood and looked, unable to do anything, as if petrified. And then the 2 turned around and walked in my direction. Only then did I come to and ran headlong into the house. My friends had already unpacked their things. Tyler was dozing on the bed. They looked at me and were scared by my appearance. I must have been completely pale. Shaking, I ran up to Vanka and pushed him with such force that he fell to the floor. What are you doing? He was indignant, getting up. Let's get out of here. I screamed like crazy and started running around the room and checking the windows. Were they open or not? They were all tightly boarded up. Despair seized me. I ran to the door and slammed it shut. My friends looked at me, some with fear, some with distrust. Footsteps were heard behind the door. Someone started to pull the handle. Tyler was about to go to the door and open it, but I ran up to the door, blocking it. Don't you dare, idiot! Don't you understand? They want to kill us. I heard their conversation. Break the window. My friends looked at me like I was crazy, but I didn't care about them. Wild fear seized me. I realized the impossibility of what was happening, and perhaps having thought about it, I myself would have decided that I had gone crazy, but the horror was so strong that I didn't understand anything. Hey guys, open the door, we brought you food and water. A voice was heard behind the door. Break it, I screamed shrilly. Everyone was scared as hell. Finally, Mishka, who was standing closest to the window, took a stool and slammed it on the window with all his might. The glass shattered with a clang. Run. There's a forest beyond the vegetable garden. Drop everything and run. I shouted. The guys, not paying attention to the forgotten sweaters and socks, rushed to the window and one by one disappeared into the night. I was still holding the door. At first, someone was tugging at the handle, but after Mishka broke the window, everything stopped. I immediately understood what was going on. They decided to catch us on the street. I rushed to the window, through which Tyler was climbing at that moment. He was still afraid to jump, although, damn it, it wasn't very high. At that moment, our friends were already jumping over the fence. And then we saw people entering the garden. There were not two of them, but a whole crowd. They were all dead. The air smelled of rotten meat. The stench came from rotting corpses. An old man with an axe in his back and a woman without a face were walking in front of everyone. They were looking at our running friends and, apparently, did not see us. Seeing such a picture, I froze for a second. Only I was left. I jumped off and ran. I heard screams behind me and someone's heavy breathing very close. They were running after me. I saw the stunned faces of my friends waiting for me behind the fence. With a running start, without stopping, I jumped over the fence. Someone grabbed me by the sleeve, but I broke free with a terrible scream that was probably heard far from that place. We ran away from that place. We ran for a very long time. Then, completely exhausted, we sat for a while in complete silence. Everyone was in such shock that we could not speak. After about 2 hours, we came out onto the road far from the place where our car was parked. We immediately stopped a passenger car. Probably the sight of a group of exhausted and tired young guys caused sympathy in the driver. An old man was sitting behind the wheel. He asked what had happened to us and where to take us. We told everything as it was, although we did not even hope that anyone would believe us. Grandfather silently listened to our story, then said, "You have been in a bad place, guys. There, in the village, no one has lived for a long time, and people constantly disappear, and no one finds them. This is a cursed place." The whole way home, we were silent. Everyone was thinking about their own. I personally then firmly decided that I would never again be curious and travel to all sorts of villages and construction sites. You never know. To hell with it. I will live in the city. Three weeks ago, I accepted a contract job that sounded too good to be true. $4,000 a week to monitor a private research facility's security feeds on a remote island. The gig came through a defense subcontractor I've freelanced for. Short-term, solo placement. Everything provided: food, shelter, satellite comms, and complete autonomy. No tourists, no locals, just me and the monitors. I figured it'd be peaceful. They flew me in by helicopter. No pilot chit-chat, just a 45-minute ride over gray water and endless clouds. When we landed, the facility looked like something from a Cold War movie. Squat concrete buildings, wind-bent trees, and antennas pointed at the sky like dead fingers. The handoff was quick. A clipboard. A list of passwords. A man in a black coat I never saw again. They told me my only job was to watch the cameras. There are 78 feeds in total. Hallways, labs, exterior fences, server rooms. Most are empty, always have been. The only regular activity is the wind shaking branches outside or the slow rotation of fans in the ceiling. I asked once what happened to the staff. The reply came through the satellite phone in a text-only message. You are not authorized for that data. By day 3, I was talking to myself just to hear a voice. By day 5, I started sleeping next to the main console. I stopped checking the calendar on day 8. Then, last night, camera 12 went dark. It's one of the hallway feeds on sublevel 3. I didn't think much of it. The wiring's old, and some of the cameras flicker in bad weather. But when I went to check the breaker box, there was no sublevel 3 listed. Just 2 floors on the diagram, ground and sublevel 1. Still, camera 12 existed. It had always been there. I'd seen that hallway loop for days, an empty, sterile corridor, until it wasn't. At 2:46 a.m., camera 12 came back online. But the hallway was different. The lights were dimmer. The walls had stains on them, smears of something dark like rust or dried blood. And down at the end of the hallway was a figure. Not moving, not walking, just standing, facing the camera. I tried zooming in, but the feed began to blur. The figure didn't react. It just stood there, perfectly still, arms at its sides, like it had been waiting for me to look. I called the emergency contact number. It rang. And rang. Then the feed cut to static. Not just camera 12, but all 78 cameras. My console rebooted. When the system came back up, camera 12 was gone, like it had never been part of the grid. This morning, I tried to leave. The helipad is still there, but no radio signal is getting out. The satellite phone just flashes no link. The backup generator is working fine. Everything else is powered, but I'm alone. Worse, the supply crates in the back room, the ones marked for month 2 and month 3, were already open. Empty. I think they knew. I think this was the real job. Not to monitor anything, not to report anything, but to be here, to be alone. I've started hearing humming through the walls, faint mechanical tones like a lullaby through static. They're not coming from the speakers or equipment, they're coming from beneath the floor. And sometimes, when I sleep, I dream of a hallway I've never been in. Dim lights, cracked tile, a figure at the end of it. Not moving, just waiting. I was brought out of my sleep by the insistent voice of the boss, demanding that I immediately open those very eyes. What happened? I asked without opening my eyes. If something serious, then, surely, I would have been woken up differently. Wake up, the boss did not back down. There are strangers on your territory. And what do you want from me? I still had to open one eye to see the displeased face of the boss in the semi-darkness. Scare them so that their descendants up to the 7th generation are afraid to stick their nose out of the house until they come of age, or immediately so that they are afraid even of the TV. Nothing like that. The boss thought for a moment. However, if you can scare them so that they do not get hurt, then try. In general, just make sure that they do not die there. As far as I remember, it is quite restless there. What facility are they at exactly? I shifted lazily in my place, not really wanting to part with sleep. On the 3rd, the elder said, instantly forcing me to open both eyes and shake off the remnants of sleep. Oh, come on. By the way, who's there? Some streamers or bloggers. Get going. They're almost there. I had to hurry. By the time I got ready, by the time I got there, I made it almost in time. They had already reached the entrance and were now taking turns looking inside timidly. 2 guys and a girl. So the question arises, what are you doing here? Lovers of abandoned buildings? Well, I sympathize. Yes, and why did you come here? And to the 3rd object, what did you dislike about the first 2 or the last 4? Why the 3rd? While I was thinking, the whole warm company rushed inside, obviously wanting to meet the inhabitants of the 3rd object. Deciding not to disturb them for now, I carefully followed. At the very entrance, they are not in any danger. But further on, 4 underground floors, into which an inconspicuous but strong metal door in the forest leads. More precisely, at first there was no door at all. Then there was a wooden one, then a metal one, then a strong metal one, then a very strong one, but each time someone manages to break it. Following the guests, I went down to the 1st floor, the most spacious. The area of a small block, it was full of rooms, small rooms, halls, corridors, and passages. Naturally, without doors. But there were enough dark corners here anyway. The guests dispersed, lighting themselves with flashlights. Every now and then the corners of the floor began to be illuminated by flashes of cameras. One of the guys, I don't know whether of his own free will or driven by instinct, headed for the descent to the 2nd floor. I didn't know why, but I followed him. As it turned out, not in vain. After passing a couple of rooms, he managed to make the acquaintance of the 1st resident of the 3rd object. A female resident. Not particularly hiding, she stood in the middle of the room, her back to the beam of the flashlight that fell on her. "Hey, who's there?" the guy asked, stopping. "You shouldn't ask questions you don't want to know the answers to." I managed to think. But he, it seems, didn't have time to think. As far as I remembered, there was nothing mortally dangerous living on the 1st floor. It might just scare you. It might even infect you. It'll itch for a week, and then everything will pass. Hey people, I found a homeless woman here. The lady, who actually looked a little like a homeless woman, at least from the back, a torn colorful dress, hair resembling a crow's nest, half blonde, half gray, turned around. But from her face, you wouldn't mistake her for a homeless person, even if you really wanted to. A huge mouth, one eye, no nose at all, needle-like teeth. So she turned around, put her clawed paws forward, and rushed at the uninvited guest. They screamed at the same time. And if the guy screamed in a completely human voice, then her squeal was like the sound of foam on glass. I winced. The guy fell on his back, still screaming. The creature fell on top of him, continuing to scream in his face and clinging to the clothes on his throat with its stumps. Taking a deep breath, I approached and grabbed the creature by the clothes. "Okay, that's enough fun," I told the lady before dragging her a couple of steps to the side. It turned out that she liked the guest's fear so much that she decided to fight back, managing to grab my leg in order to free herself. "You shouldn't have done that," I growled at her, turned her over on her back, and stomped hard on her head with my government boot. The creature shut up, pink splashed across the floor, and immediately, right in the air, began to melt like cigarette smoke. Her whole body began to melt along with the pink. The guest from the floor watched this, his mitten wide open. Well, at least he wasn't screaming anymore. What happened? A sweaty girl was the first to fly into the room, followed by the second guy, a couple of meters behind her. What happened? Who was yelling? Squatting down, the girl began to shake the man lying on the floor evenly, demanding an answer. He only blinked expressively and stretched his hand in my direction. The last wisps of smoke dissipated in the darkness of the dungeon. There, he repeated, unable to formulate anything more. Having followed his gesture, the remaining two turned around, shone their flashlights at the place where the third was pointing, but found nothing. "What is it, Max? Wake up already." The lady gave her accomplice a loud slap, and he seemed to come to his senses a little. "There, the creature," he exhaled sharply. "Where? Did you take it off?" The third one joined the conversation. "I didn't." "You didn't take it off?" The second guy exhaled and rubbed his forehead. "Bad. What happened there?" "A woman. She looks like a homeless woman, and then she turned around and at me. I didn't even have time to run. She knocked me down on the floor. Then she flew off me, over there, hit the floor and scattered. Like ashes. Like smoke. And you didn't take that off?" The second guy clarified. "Fuck you," the first one snapped. "You could have taken a lot off yourself? Or maybe you, that?" he said, not believing. "Fuck you again. I saw her, that's how I see you." The group continued to bicker, but I grinned, hiding in a dark corner as usual. Of course, he can't describe everything as it was, at least because none of them are able to see me. Such crap. That's why for him, the creature flew off and self-destructed. It was a shame, guys, that you went to the third facility. I could have entertained you on any other one myself, or with the help of much less active evil spirits. But here, I have long suspected that it is here somewhere that there is a rift between the worlds, even a gate, through which from time to time new scum crawls into the facility. I even cleared the facility a couple of times, but it turns out that new scum comes to take the place of the destroyed one. Sometimes the old one left on its own, and its place was also taken by new ones. Then I decided to leave the facility alone, only making sure that no one breaks in here. At least until I find this gate between the worlds and figure out how to close it. The debate, meanwhile, ended, and the young people confidently headed for the passage to the lower floors. Hey, wasn't that enough for you? Decided to get acquainted with someone else? What if you get scared, fall down the stairs and break your legs? Who's going to get you out of here? Have you decided to stay at the third facility forever? It's already cramped here. Trampling after them, I was thinking about who I could introduce them to so that they'd leave. Best of all, forever? There were two of the relatively safe ones at the third facility. Shadow and Pale. Shadow because he was always flat and his favorite pastime was to appear in the light of the guests' lanterns and then rattle the trash left on the floor, driving the aliens to hiccups. He could even throw something at them. Pale. This handsome guy was, on the contrary, almost white, bald, with long limbs, moved deftly both along the walls and the ceiling, and in the light of the lanterns his huge phosphorescent eyes sparkled cheerfully. I myself was pretty stunned at our first meeting when he fell on the back of my neck and hissed, "I can drive away more dangerous ones from the gang." What else? Oh, by the way, on the fourth, lowest level, in my large, partially flooded hall, a dead man has been wandering around for a long time. He either doesn't understand how to use the stairs or doesn't want to. He's not dangerous, but he's as scary as a mortal sin. They'll be able to chase these three a bit. Well, and scare them properly. He's unlikely to infect or bite, It's hard to bite without a lower jaw. At most, he'll feel around for everything. It's decided, I'll take him to the fourth. On the second underground floor, the company was already behaving more cautiously. They didn't split up. They took less pictures. They were constantly looking around. When I kicked an old metal mug, directing them in the direction I needed, the young people pressed themselves against each other, and it seems, began to go gray. Repeating my experiment, I achieved only a stifled whisper and a flickering beam of light from a flashlight, directed at the crumpled container swaying on the floor. Or maybe you should go home? Is it late? I asked myself, knowing that there was no point in asking the question out loud. The mug was still swinging against the wall when something else entered the circle of light, something black but voluminous. At first it was unclear what it was, but then something stuck out more, began to take shape. A leg? Definitely a leg. Arms appeared behind the leg, then a torso. Black, voluminous. Not the shadow. He lives on the floor below. And who is this? I don't remember anyone like that. Looking at the group, I realized that they had stopped breathing, apparently so as not to attract the attention of this creature. The creature had finally gotten through the wall. It shook itself and, without making any unnecessary sounds, rushed at the guys. After waiting a whole second, they, in turn, screamed and scattered. Damn, what have you done? Having scared all three, the new tenant of the facility chose a specific target for himself and ran after the girl. Why always after the girl? I had to run after them, unfastening the knife as I went. I caught up with them in a small room where the girl was shaking violently, huddled in a corner. But she didn't scream. Pale to the point of blueness, she bit her lip and only shone her light on the creature slowly approaching her. Not on my watch. Sneaking up from behind, I tried to slash the alien with a knife. The black one stepped back to the right, made an obscene gesture in my direction. Yeah, he doesn't talk like that. And without transition, he attacked. Now I had to retreat, trying to hit him with a knife on the go. Feeling the wall behind me, I came to my senses a little. Attack me? On my own object? How much impudence does that take? Growled, I rushed forward. A long lunge, too long if you don't know how to immediately dodge an attack. Aiming at the creature's stomach, I almost got it. Almost. The blade almost touched the black flesh when the creature did something I could not have expected. It split, disintegrated into two creatures, absolutely identical. Hesitating for a second, I immediately received a blow to the jaw, fell to the floor, miraculously dodged a kick, managed to grab the attacker by the same leg and pull him towards me. Fortunately, I was by the wall, and the creature hit the wall with its entire body. True, the second one immediately attacked me, rewarding me with several painful blows. Having rolled several times, I got up, breathing heavily. So it means you are doubling, but you can only pass through walls in one piece. This changes the rules a little. This time there were already two of them advancing on me, and there wasn't much space. I attack one. The second one won't hesitate. All that was left was to use my mind. Having swayed to one side, forcing one of the creatures to group, I threw myself under the feet of the second one, slashing with my knife as I went. This time I got it, which I understood from the disgruntled roar, and also from the fact that, having turned around, she became slower, dragging her leg. I'll call you marked. I pointed the knife at the wounded half of the creature before attacking again. If I finish one off, maybe the other will calm down too? I managed to take a few steps towards her before they both appeared in front of me again. Almost instantly they merged, and then the black one dodged the blow, turned his back, received a blow to the back, growled again in displeasure, and jumped straight through the wall, disappearing. And don't think that I won't find you, I threatened the wall, which also got hit with a knife, but didn't wait for an answer. I will. I'll follow the gang, lead them out of here, and come back. I'll count all your bones. But, turning around, I suddenly realized that the girl was still here. And she was barely even shaking anymore. The flashlight in her hands was shining right on the wall with the scratch from my knife, where the creature had jumped. No need for thanks, I chuckled to myself, shaking the creature's black blood off the knife onto the floor. Chris, where are you? Voices were heard in the darkness. Human voices. Wow, those two are still here? Didn't you abandon your friend? It's not that I approve of you staying here, but I do approve of you not abandoning her. I'm here, the girl responded, shaking herself. Let's get out of here. The one the madam had rushed at was the first to fly into the room. Let's go. We need to get out. The guy is right. I supported him again under my breath. Let's go. The girl took a few steps from her corner. She turned around, lighting herself with the flashlight again, and again she stared straight at the place where the black one had galloped off to. Well, she couldn't look at me, standing between her and the wall. They can't see me, except for very strong mediums. Thank you. A barely audible feminine whisper in the almost complete darkness of the dungeon. Thank you for saving me. Thanks for watching this video. Write in the comments what story you like the most. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.